All right, let's get this thing going. So I'm back at home base. It's good to be back. It was quite a trip, and 5 weeks away. Um, really anxious to get cranking up again and get you guys working in the note space. Uh, like I said, it was a great trip, and it's good to be back. So hopefully we can make some progress here in beautiful month of March. And I know things are still not really showing up too well with the banks. I don't know what kind of progress you guys are making. I've got a couple of topics that I wanted to cover here this evening. And of course, any input from you guys is really helpful. Uh, it really helps me kind of take this thing in the right direction. When a new conversation opens up, let me make sure I hit the record button here. I've forgotten how to, yes, forgotten how to run this thing from home. I'm working off a desktop instead of a laptop. So it's really good to hear from you guys on these calls. Starting conversations sparks more information and conversation. It helps me to get more information out to you because I really don't know what you guys don't know. It's kind of a hard thing to explain. But you know, when a conversation opens up, when there's two or three people discussing something, new topics come up, ideas come up that we wouldn't have touched on if it wasn't for that conversation. I find that very helpful. I remember back in my mentor days when I was learning this business, you know, my guy kind of ran out of things to talk about, and it wasn't until someone brought up a question or an issue about their struggle that they were having in their business, then it was a conversation that could last for three different phone calls. So if you could help me out to help you guys out, that's what I'm here for. And opening up conversation, the you know, and I think the biggest problem is people are afraid to ask questions that either we've already covered or I don't know. They were worried that they're going to ask a stupid question or something, and you may be helping someone else on the call who wanted to ask that question but just didn't want to bring it up. So you know, it's an interesting phenomena of a group situation. It can be very very helpful. I found it so helpful that I ended up starting up this fast track meeting with you all. And a group setting, in my opinion, is a fantastic way to learn this business. It it evokes teamwork, camaraderie, partnerships that would not be there if you signed up with me on a one-on-one mentorship program. Uh, because we don't have a dynamic, we've got 10 people on this call this evening that it would just be a one-on-one conversation. There'd be two people involved in the conversation. But if we can get 6 or 8 people talking on one topic or on one person's situation, we are all at different levels in this note business. We're all at different levels, and some of you have yet to own your first note, and some of you own a couple, and some of you own quite a few notes, and that leads for very interesting discussions if you feel like talking about it. So my whole message here is if you can chime in, I'd appreciate it. It helps my job because I've got some information in me, but I don't know how to just come out and start talking about uh, a certain subject. So if you could email me some topics that you'd like to hear from, because I think we've logged, Julie. and Jim, do you have an idea how many of these Thursday night phone calls we've logged so far?
Yeah, I don't know how many it is, but the course has been going on for over a year, so
So
it's gotta be around 60s, 70s maybe.
yeah. So we're running out of topics. And I don't want to repeat myself because I don't want to bore anybody. So I think that is kind of my fear of not wanting to repeat myself because, oh, great, we're going to talk about chapter 13 again. We did that in call 23. So, um, and don't be afraid to ask me to repeat something because maybe it didn't stick. I had to hear about chapter 13 5 or 10 times before it stuck with me. And a guy that I was on the calls with, 13 or 14 years ago, him and I still own notes together. And I got on the phone with him today and told him, about the progress that we've made on the deals that we have. And he says, yeah, I'm getting that one borrower's check every month, and it's a pretty healthy check. And I said, well, that's because, he said, why all of a sudden there was nothing and now there's this healthy check coming in. We're splitting $1,100 a month. And he said, and I told him, I said, this is a chapter 13 deal. And he goes, oh, tell me about that again. Because he's not an active note investor. He's active with me and he lets me do all the dirty work. And then we just cut him checks. Which is fine for us because that's the way he likes it, and it's very profitable for both of us. We've been partners on deals. Well, it's actually one of the deals that Julie has rehabbed and is living in now. So we've been partners for I would say at least 12 or 13 years. That was in 2009 when we bought that note with um, in North Carolina, and 10 others or 9 others. So we're in now, I don't know, we've been working together a long time. So I had to sit down and revisit with him. He goes, how much longer are these checks going to come in? I'm like, well, these nice healthy ones are going to come in for the next 5 years because this borrower is trying to get caught up with all of the arrears that have accumulated over these years. And at the end of the 5-year cycle of Chapter 13 bankruptcy, if he survives, he will have brought this loan current, and he will be essentially credit card free, and he'll basically be a new man. And the credit bureaus are going to be eyeballing him to give him some more money so he can fall on his face again. So we're going to get a healthy check from him for the next 4.5 years. And then when that ends, we're going to revert back to the $650 a month payment that he's supposed to be making on this $100,000 debt. And that's going to continue on for the next 15 years after the chapter 13 is complete. And he's like, my God, you got to be kidding me. I said, yeah, it's fun to revisit this stuff. He's like, it sure is. I forgot all about chapter 13 and how it works. And so anyway, it's interesting to revisit and talk about chapter 13s. We've got another note where one of you students started foreclosure back in November of 2020, and we just got an email from the opposing counsel, or from our attorney got it from opposing counsel, that the borrowers have vacated the home, and it looks like they're walking away from about $90,000 worth of equity. So there's never a dull moment, and there's never something to learn in this business. I've never seen a borrower walk away from $100,000 worth of equity before because of a $35,000 foreclosure being started from a junior position. So this is a whole new thing, something I've never experienced, and I don't know if any of my other investor buddies that have been around a while have experienced a an equity walkaway. I've had a couple of no equity walkaways, which really makes sense to me because you're better off going and renting a house for $800 a month instead of trying to dig out of a no equity non-performing junior lien, which we have owned several in our lives. Um, but here's a case of a borrower walking away from an equity deal. And so maybe this is a strategic move by this opposing counsel. That remains to be seen. I believe we're going to send a pizza over to them and see if they answer the door. We're going to give them a free pizza and see if that gets delivered or not, or some type of a door knocking situation that we can have a little fun with. So my point is, this business is constantly evolving, constantly changing. The laws are constantly changing. I remember pre 2011, there was no such thing as a lien strip until I think it was Max Gardner came up with some little tidbit that he found in some previous case where there was no equity protecting the second mortgage on a residential deal. And if there was no equity, the debt was deemed unsecured and to be treated as an unsecured debt in a Chapter 13. So that changed the playing field for a lot of people in 2010, 11, 12, 13, because the muddy waters that we were running in, there was plenty of no equity notes, which made a lot of us back off on our foreclosures because we did not want to chase them into a lien strip situation. And so that was a big change in this business. And so yeah, it's a constantly moving target. And that's what I love about this business is it is definitely not boring. We have another borrower who it has this performing loan. I bought it non-performing. It's been performing inside my IRA since 2011. And I've just been receiving payments for the last 10 years, and the borrower requested a discounted payoff because she's refinancing. And we drafted up a letter and said, yes, we're going to forgive $6,000 on a $35,000 balance. We'll accept a $29,000 short payoff. And I just got a call from her literally an hour before we jumped on here that the PNC is doing a refinance and they will not book this thing. The only way they can book it with this $6,000 discount is listed as a short sale, and they won't close unless that gets fixed. So she called me up in a frantic, and I said, listen, we can just write this off as the balance is going to be $29,847, and we're forgiving $5,436, and they don't need to know that this is a discounted payoff. Brilliant for her to ask for a discount. I don't know where she got that from. Has been a smart person throughout this whole thing. She did a refinance on her first mortgage 2 years ago, and the title company asked for me to subordinate my junior lien, meaning that they would do a refinance on that first mortgage, and then the subordination would get recorded to say that we will continue to stay in second mortgage, even though our mortgage was recorded earlier than this new mortgage, and we agreed to a subordination, and we did it happily because she's been making monthly payments for the last 10 years. So So now she's refinancing again. She managed to get that done, and we're going to get paid in full um, by March 31st. So um, that's, something I've never experienced before, was a borrower that has been performing and then asking me for a short payoff, and the refinancing bank will not actually accept a short payoff. It never occurred to me that would take place. So there's a lot of interesting things. We got back from the trip, and the next morning we woke up and saw that we had a wire transfer come in. We thought it was from a loan sale. We didn't recognize the name of the company. It was like Triton LLC or something. And it turns out that a borrower that had asked me for a payoff statement maybe 2 or 3 months ago got approved, and we got paid off. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of I don't want to say turmoil, but there is a lot of movement in the mortgage industry right now. The interest rates being what they are, this this loose money that seems to be floating around out there. Um, we're a little ways away from blood in the streets. On our mastermind call last night, we were talking about what we saw, what we expect to see in the immediate future, and I think we're just going to see a lot more of the same. I saw that someone else had put out an email and said that these are the best of times and the worst of times at the same time, and that really is a true story. We just spent the last 5 weeks cruising around Florida like nothing ever happened. Come back home to New Jersey, and it's lockdown city again. I've got people out in LA that that we met with that just moved out of LA. He was in the Hollywood industry, and he got himself down to Myrtle Beach because he was just sick of what was going on. He managed to retire and get out of LA County because it's a zoo out there. I don't want to get political or anything, but what I do want to do with you folks is kind of discuss what we're seeing out there, and see if we can't make some heads or tails of it, and figure out where we should be and what we should be doing. In my mind, we should still be really working very hard at building personal relationships, building our bank relationships, our contacts in general, our contacts with our network is probably the biggest thing that we should be working on. And I just wrote a little article. I went and ordered myself a really nice phone because I need a big screen. I'm going to be on this phone a lot, building relationships with people, with investors, with banks, and I want to get a new phone and start off this new year the right way. And I look at the cost of a new phone. I look at the cost of overall tools that it takes to run this business, and it's surprisingly cheap. A $1,300 phone. I looked at this last phone that I bought, and I got this in November of 2017, and the amount of money that I've made with that phone is ridiculous. Talking to borrowers, talking to banks, talking to investors, partnering, just it's the main tool. It can, during this trip, it has even doubled as my office computer, pulling up documents on the road for these for a couple of different borrowers that are doing refis, pulling over a McDonald's parking lot and pulling up Evernote, seeing pulling out the documents so that we can send them to closing literally in the parking lot on the highway. Fantastic. It is just fantastic. You know, I have Money Lender Professional on my laptop, and that one I pulled into a parking lot, got on the Wi-Fi, and I was able to email that one document that actually had to be rescinded, that short payoff letter for my IRA note, on the road in a parking lot on a lousy laptop. My wife's got her phone out and she's pulling things out of Evernote, and I've got Money Lender Professional, and I'm printing the PDF and then emailing it out to this borrower. We had to create that good standing letter for that same borrower, that this loan is in good standing and this is not a non-performing note. We've managed to do that in the car on the highway in Tampa area, and the cost of the tools is ridiculously cheap to get into this business. A new phone, a new laptop, Evernote, a couple of softwares, Moneylender Pro. Literally go into business for less than $5,000. Distress Pro, LinkedIn doesn't cost you anything. They're $60 a month. And I used to think about starting up a machine shop because I'm a machinist my whole life, and the cost of entry to start a crappy machine shop be $2 or $3 million. Here, we can do this from the back of the car. Like, it is just ridiculous. So the reason I'm bringing this up is, at first I'm like, $1,300 for a phone, really? And I'm like, you know what? That's not even the brokering fee on one note. And I'm going to be looking at this damn thing, I don't know how many times a day, looking at spreadsheets. I've got a wide screen now so that when I hold the phone sideways and I'm going through a spreadsheet and I can scroll through, it's easy to do. I've purchased many notes from a spreadsheet on my phone, just looking at the data that was given to me, and decided to pull the trigger right from my phone, and not pulling a credit report or not just going on and doing some basic Zillow type search stuff, because I've got a contact now that the information that's supplied to me is so reliable that I can trust that the information they provided, it has been correct every time. I've looked at over 2,000 notes from them now. I purchased, I think we're up to about 105. And if anything comes up that I don't like, I send it back, and they have no problem taking it back. I almost sent back one of the best deals I ever had because I thought there was more equity than there was, and then it turned out to be a first mortgage, which put me totally in equity. So find that contact that will feed you for going on 5.5 years now. One bank, one place. And so the cost of entry for the tools that is needed for this business is amazing. And so I want to stop right there and see if anybody has any questions so far about the things that I've discussed, and then we can move on to some other stuff. Okay. All right. So Lindell had sent in. Let me just take a look and see who's that. Oh, let me turn this ringer off here. Okay. Let's see. When rehabbing a note back to performing status, what are the key indicators to identify? That's an interesting question. So where's a great place to start with this? When when I'm in the process of purchasing notes, I'm talking about not actually having those notes in my possession yet. I'm still looking at them. I'm still evaluating. I'm doing my due diligence, just like what we were doing with those 300 notes. We were looking at them. I kind of have an idea through the process of due diligence whether how this note is going to play out. How is this going to end? I've been wrong sometimes. I've been happily wrong sometimes. Notes that I think are going to perform pay off. Notes that I think are going to pay off. The house sells. Notes that I think are going to be duds. Turn out that they just want to make payments. But for the most part, I've got a good idea of the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is not hearing anything back from them and having to start foreclosure uh, to get the borrower back on track. Like that Chapter 13 note that I was just talking about with my buddy, with my partner, that was a non-performing note for 2 years. And we had to start foreclosure. They received a couple of letters from the foreclosure attorney. They realized that we were not messing around, and they went into Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and now we're getting paid. I think we're 6 or 7 months into that payment. It looks they have not had any hiccups. Usually what happens with the Chapter 13, it's a little rough and rocky in the beginning because here's a trustee who is acting. I don't think I've ever discussed this with you guys. So I was thinking really hard about how to explain a Chapter 13 and what is it similar to. And I realized that it is similar to um, when a borrower when a person dies and they go into probate or they have an executor to handle their accounts. Uh, when I was an executor to my uncle's passing, he had a lot of assets, and but he was not there to pay the bills, to count the money that comes in from his assets that he was collecting. So I acted essentially as a trustee, like a Chapter 13 trustee, where the trustee says, okay, you're filing Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Hand over all of your finances to me. And that must be a horrible feeling because here you are all your life, doing your books and doing your bills and money coming in, your paycheck comes in, you divide it up, and maybe you're doing a good job at it, maybe you're not so hot at it. And now this trustee steps in basically um, like you died. And maybe there is still income coming in from assets or from your paycheck, but you have to hand everything over to the trustee, and now the trustee is in control of your financial life. That's essentially what a Chapter 13 is. It's essentially like dying, and your financial life is no longer yours. It's now the trustees, and he's calling the shots. He's negotiating the credit card debt down. He's going to get you back on track by the end of the 5 years period. He is going to get you back on track, but you, as the borrower, have to keep coming up with the money to stay in bankruptcy. And that gets tough on the borrower in the beginning because the trustee says, listen, you need to come up with $3,500 this month or we're going to kick you out. So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing because you don't have to worry really about, your expenses other than coming up with $3,500. You don't have to figure out which credit card you are going to pay, which credit card you're not going to pay, which car payment you are going to make. You're going to pay your second mortgage. You're not going to pay your second mortgage. All you have to do is focus on pedaling your bicycle fast enough to come up with that $3,500. And for some people, they adhere to that. It's like, you know what? Thank God I don't have to do this every month, this juggling. We've been in a position where we've juggled, luckily, thankfully, we've had rentals that, we can, we've got cash flow coming in, but we've got cash flow going out. But it's a lot easier to juggle your books when you got 10 grand a month coming in off of residual, off of your rentals, uh, so that you can, you know, get things paid that have to get paid until the next chunk comes in. And it's a lot easier in my mind to, if you've got some cash flow coming in, even though you've got cash flow coming out, than if you only have one job, one income. If you have one income and that income stops, you're screwed. And I'm making this point because you should be constantly focusing on increasing your cash flow every day. Every day you should focus on making money. And if you don't have money coming in, or if you're not at least working on money coming in every day, you're in for a problem down the road. And it's easy to get into a rut of saying, well, when I finish this project, then the money's going to come in. When I finish that project, or we close this deal, I've got one guy who I'm very close to, who is looking to close a land deal. And if he gets this thing closed, it'll basically put him on the top of the pile. Uh, but I keep telling him, go out and find little deals to close while you're waiting on the big deal to close. Because the number of deals that you have in the pipeline, odds increase that you will be okay, and some of the deals will close, but unfortunately some of the deals won't close. It's just the way it is. And sitting around waiting for that one deal to close, waiting for that one check to come in, I believe me, I've lived my life like that until I was 45 years old. I had one income coming into the house, and thank God nothing ever happened where I was in a spot where that check didn't come. I think only maybe two or three times my boss couldn't make payroll. It was and I remember the time so well. He was going through a divorce, and then he kind of got back on track, and we got back on payroll. And then he walked up to me. I showed up on Saturday morning to do some work, and he hands me $1,000. Now this is a long time ago. He hands me 10 $100 bills, and I'm like, Danny, are you sure? He goes, what, are you kidding me? $1,000 doesn't buy me breakfast, and he walks away. So I remember going to the toll booth on the way home. We have toll booths here in New Jersey, and it was 25 cents to get off the highway. And I'm like, oh shoot, man! All I've got is these $100 bills in my pocket. So I'm going way off topic here, but it's one of the funnier stories. So I pull up to the toll guy. This is back before Easy Pass, and I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry, man. I swear to God, this is all I have. He's like, do you realize that I could give this back to you in singles or in quarters? I'm like, why would you even bring that up? He's like, I can't believe you're busting my chops and make me make change for $100 bill for a 25 cent. I'm like, dude, that's your friggin' job, making change, isn't it? Oh man, that was the end of that. Anyway, it didn't end as bad as I thought, but um, with my boss, he ran into some tough times too, and we all do. And but I was really living paycheck to paycheck. I only had one paycheck coming in, and I really have sympathy for my borrowers that I know that they're in the same boat. I've actually taken a few borrowers and gotten them into the mentality of becoming an investor. And the way I did that was I either knew through prior bankruptcy that they did have a 401k, or we've had a discussion about it, or I just kind of assumed that, I had one borrower, first borrower I ever did this to. She worked for Kraft Cheese out in Pennsylvania somewhere. And I knew that Kraft Cheese was a big outfit, and that she probably had a 401k, just by the job that she had. And I spoke to her and her husband. I said, listen, you probably have a 401k. I don't know how it's done. This is probably back in 2009 or 10 or something, when the market has already tanked. And I said, if you do have a 401k and you can borrow against it, I don't know what kind of returns you've gotten out of your 401k, but I can give you a 50% return and put it back into equity in your house with a 50% return. I said, you give me $1 and I'll give you $1.50's worth of equity back in your house. And you can go to work next week and tell your friends that you got a 50% return with the money that's in your 401k. And she said, I'll do that. So she ended up forking over $15,000, and or I gave her $15,000 worth of credit for a $10,000 check. And she eliminated all of her arrears, started making payments, and then stupidly I sold that note to one of my friends, who's a big note investor. And but the point there is, it was bad for me to sell that note, because I could have sold a partial on it and I'd still have that note today. But I sold it and I thought I was a genius. But a couple of years later, I learned how to sell partials instead of that. But the point is, I figured out how to turn a borrower who was working paycheck to paycheck into an investor. And I got her to wrap her mind around getting a 50% return with her 401k money, because for every dollar she gave me, I gave her $1.50 in value. Um, that was a fantastic lesson, because having that ability to get these people to turn over a new leaf and start thinking like an investor instead of like an employee. That's how it happened for me. I was employee mentality, and if I didn't work more hours, I didn't get more money, and if I didn't get a raise, I didn't get more money, and if I didn't get a second job, I didn't get more money, and I didn't know that you could just get money by investing. So that was a huge lesson for this woman, and I think, because they were so quick to jump on that, I really think that lesson stuck, and I hope that it did, and I hope that they're wealthy today, and I just showed them how to take money out of one place and get a good return somewhere else. Equity in your house is a beautiful thing, and she managed to make the right decision in my mind. I've done that several times. I've done that with, well, it's a number of second mortgage opportunities. At one time, I offered them 100% return. Every dollar you give me, I'll give you $2. They owed so much in arrears. It was 38,000 in arrears or something. And I'm thinking, if they could give me 15 grand, that would really take a chunk out of these arrears, and it would totally pay me back for the purchase price of the note, and do them a great service by giving them literally 100 cents on a dollar. 100% return, 200 cents on a dollar. Which where else can you get that? Where else? Who else is offering that to you? Okay, so getting back to rehabbing a note, as Lindell put it here. I want to have a good idea of where I'm going to how I'm going to get paid back before I ever buy the thing. And if you go back and go through the calls when we were studying those 325 loans, you may be able to get quite a bit of information out of that, or go back to that spreadsheet that I had pulled up for you guys earlier. Um, the one that we were working on, that Google Doc. And if anybody needs access to that, absolutely shoot me an email. I'll get you back into that. And so, okay, raising capital to acquire non-performing. All right, so raising capital in general. You know, I like to think that I can get my hands on as much money as I want anytime I want. What that does for me, and let me tell you what, it took a while for me to acquire that thought, because thoughts come and go, boom boom. It's easy to have a thought, but that thought has to be turned into a belief, and to be able to believe that I can get my hands on as much money as I want at any time had to be learned. It had to be acquired. And when I really realized that, hey, you know what? I have the ability to get my hands on as much money as I need at any time. But what made me believe that? What made me believe that? Well, what made me believe it was I need to be able to recognize a deal that's too good to be true. And once I can recognize a deal that's too good to be true, I felt now much more powerful to the point that I can get my hands on as much money as possible if I can find a deal that's too good to be true. And I've always said to myself, a deal of a lifetime could come along once a week, once a month, once every 2 months, once a day, if you can get that into your mind. We're all walking around with these notions and thoughts of how things are, and money is hard to get your hands on, and I don't have a track record, and who's going to believe me, and what if I lose money, and all of these things that go against you when it comes to the thought of raising capital. I say this from experience, because my background, I come from, I don't want to say poverty, but my father worked for the post office his entire life, and he had a little tailoring business on the side so that he can have a few bucks to go to Atlantic City. And we lived a very modest life. The house was 30 years in disrepair. The cars, I drove a $400 Volkswagen, and he drove I don't know what, old Toyotas. We lived a very modest life, and to come out of a childhood of that, and now to be able to sit here and think I can get my hands on as much money as I need at any time for a deal of a lifetime, for a deal that I am actively looking for. That goes a long way in my life beliefs of how things were and how things now are. I feel that, if we could have bought those 325 at the right price, I know that at snap of my fingers, I would have the capital to put that deal together, uh, because of the people. So I guess it's several factors. One, it's the people that I know that I can put together to get that deal done. Two, it's the ability to know that, hey, if we can get these loans for the price that we offered, it's a friggin' steal. It's a friggin' deal. And let's get this thing done and closed. So it takes those two things, the ability to recognize a deal of a lifetime and the people that you meet along the way that you know that you can, um, I don't want to say convince, but I know that you can show for them to say, you know what, Mike, I'm in. Let's do this. Or maybe they know where that money is going to come from. Uh, it's not actually theirs, but they're good at raising capital. I've got friends of mine that are very good at raising capital. A couple of guys that are on this call that are good at getting 5% money together and lend it to me at 12%. I have no problem paying 12% if I've got a deal of a lifetime on a hook. So that's my story on raising capital. Um, you can go as far as you want. I know that one of the folks on this call wants to start a private placement and create a fund and start it off that way. Him and his partner, they're two young people. Uh, One's an attorney, and the other one, I don't know, I think a business degree. And so these two young folks are not afraid to start a fund and get their hands dirty and prove to the people that have the money that they have the ability to get the job done, which is awesome. And I'm willing to work with them. They're part of my mentorship program, my one-on-one deal, and I will do every effort to make sure that that fund gets off the ground and it gets funded correctly, and it gets the right kind of notes into that fund so that they're going to make money. Very interesting to be able to work alongside these guys. Um, so I don't know if that answers your question, Lindell, about raising capital. Um, if the deal comes along that, you know, so going back to those 325 loans, I had no problem with the offer. I don't know, 1.6 or 2.6 of making that offer blind. Um, at the price that we offered, it was a sweet deal for us, and I know that we would not have had any problem raising that capital. And so, the quicker you folks can learn that, gain that confidence, you know, I don't care if you're walking down the street and you see a fantastic apartment building and go, you know what? I don't know, it's 35 million, but I think this is a $70 million property or $60 million property, or even, you know, a $45 million property and you can get it for 30. Um, I would have no problem putting down some money as an option to tie that property up for 6 months. And now options are something that I have not discussed very much. But, you know, we may actually um, start thinking about locking some of these loans up that we're going to be seeing with options. I don't know if a bank would go for it. I'm sure they would, but that's a whole nother fantastic topic that I would love to explore with you folks in the near future and talk about that. Let's see. So, building a network of worthy note buyers and sellers. Well, the thing about note buyers and sellers, they're usually one and the same people. usually. Now, a bank, I have sold notes to a bank. I wouldn't call them actually a bank, more of a financial institution, but they are buyers of notes and they pay. FINAC is who I'm thinking of. Um, FINAC, First American, whatever. Uh, Maybe somebody can help me out with that. But anyway, I sold some notes to them at performing notes at 85 cents on the dollar. I bought a non-performing note and at 13 cents on the dollar. Got the borrower to reinstate in full, which was more than the purchase price of the note. They made 18 payments of, I don't know, $800 a month, and then I sold the note for $63,000, an $87,000 UPB for 63 grand, and that was a fantastic thing. So, would I buy a note off of them? Absolutely not. In my opinion, they pay too much for their notes, but they're borrowing money at 3 and 4%, and they're looking for, I think, maybe an 8 yield or a 10 yield or something like that on monthly payments, but they have to be fully covered in equity, which this one was. So usually buyers are also sellers. You'll find as you get into this business that people want to buy at 3 cents and sell it to you at 30 cents. And I don't blame them for it, but that's usually the limiting factor is the pricing. And so buyers sometimes are sellers. Buyers are sometimes sellers. So your buyers, yes. So your people that may buy notes from you as in a brokering situation at some point may want to sell those notes, or other notes that they have in their portfolio. So it's an interesting thing that everybody wants to buy low and sell high. So you may want to have actually two groups of people that sell low, and then you can sell to other people at a higher price, obviously. So let's see, building a network. Okay, so the whole concept is building that network. That's the most important part. For me, I find that building my network has been a fun thing. For other people, maybe it's like watching paint dry, and for some others, still, it's a horror story. It's something that they've feared, or they just have never had any practice at it. For me, it became a natural thing, and I'm sure you guys get to see the emails that I send out on different topics regarding investing or something. All that does, when I send these things out, when people get to hear from me, it builds trust. I'm not asking them for money. I'm not asking them to sign up for anything. I am offering my personal experience, or I'm just creating a genuine conversation. A guy that I've studied intensely, Gary Vaynerchuk, wrote a fantastic book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And what that concept of that book is, all the noise that is begging for your attention out there, all of the advertising, all of the marketing, all of the things people are trying to push you to buy something and use their product, they don't provide any content, or they're not providing much content. And the content, the sell is the right hook, And the jab, jab, jab is a content. So give them content, give them what they want, give them content, give them something for free, give them the information that they need, and then hit them for a sale or hit them for a capital raise if you're looking to raise capital. Then that's when you're asking them to do something for you. But at first, you want to provide content. Uh, that just naturally came to me back in 2008 and 9, where I was genuinely excited to, first of all, get out of my 9 to 5 job and be able to make money outside of someone else's schedule. And so I started doing these webinars on content that I found helpful for my other note investors. And so when I was out there, and and this goes back to your building a network, I was not looking for buyers or sellers. I was looking for, and this is a big point, and I've really never made this point before. Um, I am not building a network of worthy note buyers and sellers. I was building a network of friends. I was building a network of note investors in general. Some ended up becoming buyers. Some ended up becoming sellers, but I was not out there looking for buyers and sellers. I was out there looking for other like-minded note investors. Now, I can tell you that out of those 5 people that I was working with on our first trade, I knew which ones had money. I knew which ones had just spent all their money on a trade. I knew which ones were going on vacation next month. I knew what their kids' names are. I knew what kind of foods they like to eat. I know where they went on vacation last year. I know where they live. I know everything about them because these are people that I'm relying on to get a trade done. And yeah, someone came into our first trade uh, with $5,000 to buy a note or two. I think she ended up with two. But I knew everything about her. I knew her husband. We had physically met at a restaurant. We all got together at a great restaurant in Manhattan, which I still go to, with great Indian cuisine. And I know everything about these people, not because I wanted to know who had the money and who doesn't have the money, but that helps. You know, I had 2 people come in with 75,000, and I came in with 50,000, and we ended up coming up with $350,000 total for our first note trade that I orchestrated and put together. I knew everything about these people, and that's what I recommend to you. Like if I do a trade with one of you guys, I bet you I've known you for more than a year. I've got people on this call that I've known for 29 years, 27 years. Oh God, Tom, I think we've known each other 45 years. So I'm pretty confident that the people that I'm going to be doing a trade with, I know them well enough that first of all, they're not going to rip me off. Second of all, they are going to come through with a closing because I already know that they have the money wherever it is. I know exactly where it is already. It's in the bank. It's in their IRA. It's in their self-directed. It's in their whatever. I know these people well. And when you're building up your, what you say, network of worthy note buyers and sellers, you need to build up your network and know these people well. And so these emails that I put out to these 900 people that I converse with on a regular basis, I'm building credibility with them. I put an email out today. I don't know if you guys, if you don't get my emails, go to noconference.com and type in your first name and email address, and that will put you into my email mailing list. And periodically now, especially that I'm back and I'm all fired up from being on vacation, um, I'm going to be putting out a lot of content in the next couple of weeks, just because I've been building up all kinds of ideas on what I want to accomplish. I'm building up a trust, and at first my email list consisted of 5 people, but these are 5 people that I became very good friends with and I trust. And and so these people have gone on to become quite successful in this note space, which is fantastic because now I've got a person who owns a servicing company, and you know he was an IT guy when he got into this space, and now he's using his IT skills and capabilities to build out his own mortgage servicing software. Um, we talked on a daily basis. I know his dog's name. You know, we were at the time we were very close. We talked daily about our note business. We talked daily about where we are going to find more notes. Back then, I think notes were even more scarce back then because I didn't have near the network that I have now of people that were in this space. I literally was. I knew 5 other people that understood the note business. My space was very small. My network was nothing. But I would email to these 5 people and say, "Hey, listen, let's jump on a webinar Wednesday night. Uh, I've got the software." I'd send them an invite, and we would just BS about notes, And after about 3 months of that, one guy goes, "You know what? I'm not going to come on your calls anymore unless you give me a topic, because I don't want to sit there for 2 hours and just listen to you guys just BS about your notes." I'm like, "Okay, so I'll give you. How about next month we talk about Pacer?" He goes, "Perfect. I don't know anything about Pacer. I'll be on the call." And that one piece of advice made so much sense to me because, you know, it's even the cataloging of the calls. They were just like random chats. Now, we got a lot done with those random chats, but in the beginning, to have a topic that someone can look forward to saying, "You know what? I would love to know about more about Pacer. I'm not familiar with it." Um, I was intentionally going out and finding something to learn about so that I could hold a webinar on it. And what did that do? That made me more experienced in, let's say, Pacer, because I was scared to death of bankruptcy in the beginning. I opened up Pacer account. I went and started going crazy in it. I went on someone else's webinar. Kevin, my buddy Kevin, was really into buying notes that either previously were in Chapter 7 or in an Active 13 or even in Discharge 13. He loved them because of the amount of information that could be gathered about the borrower. He's like, "This is a borrower I absolutely do not ever want to work with. And this is a borrower who absolutely fantastic and's got a $75,000 401k. We can do the investor conversation with somebody who has a 401k." So I was literally inviting 5 or 10 people onto the webinars. Maybe 3 or 4 would show up. I'd hit the record button, and then I shared those out to people that were in my inner circle. And that's what worked. Um, that really is what worked with me, and I know it can work with you also, because it's so easy to do. But like I said, I was going out trying to find topics that I thought were interesting enough that I could share out to the group. And in the meantime, I was gaining experience. You know, when I sat down and started going through Pacer just for the fun of it, to build my knowledge, after I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, you could ask me anything about Pacer as long as it was on residential 7 or 13, and I could either spit out the answer or I could dig it up and find it for you within 10 minutes. Um, that's what you guys can do with becoming an expert. And you know, I say this all the time: become an expert, become an expert. Um, because then you could become an expert at this thing and then move on to the next thing, become an expert at that. And before you know it, you're doing a lot of good things in a lot of good places. Fantastic way to build a network and be that focal point for people to rely on, for people to trust, for people that want to actually work with you. You know, I have, I'm sure I have people that don't want to work with me, but I have quite a few people that want to work with me just because I'm out there, just because I am willing to help people with their deals, willing to help them with their due diligence. Let's say um, it's a fantastic thing to go from literally no friends to having so many different investors that I can just call on the phone and speak with them. Guy who's just calling me, he wants me on his podcast. So you know, it's you got to get out there and you've got to be that note person that that you can be, and it really is self promotion. Um, you know, when I was a kid in the music business, we were all talking, sitting around smoking cigarettes, talking about hopefully getting discovered in the music business, and uh, and that's a bunch of crap. Even back then, it's self promotion is what gets you recognized. And we used to joke about the guy who was playing guitar in a Holiday Inn who sounded better than Billy Joel. And what's the difference between that guy in a Holiday Inn and Billy Joel being in Madison Square Garden? Was Billy Joel believed he can be in Madison Square Garden, and the guy who played at the Holiday Inn believed he belonged at the Holiday Inn. Um, your self worth, uh, in my experience, played a big role, whether we liked it or not, or whether it was good or bad. Plays an enormous role in how we uh, look look at ourselves and view ourselves and what we think we're worthy of and capable of and what we're not capable of. But the funny thing is we're all the same. We're all given the same amount of potential. It's just a matter of how you exercise that gift. We are all given that gift. It's just how far do you want to take it? And I look back and I think, man, I could have done a lot more in the time that I was given. I looked at my slow progress in this note space, and I look at all of the opportunities that I should have taken that I didn't. I mean, I don't want to go down the street kicking myself in the butt all the time, but um, you got to get out there and you gotta do things. And all right, so quickly identifying a profitable note and quantifying the profit or the return on investment. Um, I would, what I want to do is I really want to go back and and The process that we went through on the 325 notes, I really want to sit down and edit that out and actually do another presentation on that at a little bit of a more understandable level, at a slower pace, where we can turn that week and a half of scramble into an actual lesson, that where we can talk about pricing, we can talk about return on investment, we can look at why we think this note is a good one and why this one's a bad one, and is our what do we think is recoverable on each of those loans. We've got all the data, we've got all the credit information, we've got the spreadsheet populated. I really want to revisit that and turn that into a functional lesson. Um, and then also make note of this, that we really need to figure out where those loans ended up and any other loans that we've looked at so far. I think we had 650 loans on that tape, and then some other loans that we can actually go and track down through the assignment chain and figure out where those loans ended up. I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but it's very important that we stay on top of that, because that could be a huge potential for us to acquire those notes from the person who purchased them. All right. So, does anybody have any questions on the topics that we've discussed here tonight, before we get into any other general questions? Just go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'd love to hear from you. All right. Well, how about any questions in general? Anything that you'd like us to discuss or talk about? I'd love to hear from you.
I have a question.
Hey, Jewel.
Hey, how's it going?
Great.
Um, so I know earlier in the call you talked about having different streams of income, but how do you decide what is like a valuable stream of income and what's just kind of like that shiny object syndrome?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. So you should be constantly, I'm trying to think of probably the easiest thing that I could discuss would how about this? So take a look at someone else's stream of income. And this is, I'm totally just making this up right now. So take a look at not me personally, but find someone in your group that right now is getting some type of a stream of income. It could be a rental income. It could be some note money. It could be some type of affiliate marketing that they're getting cash flow from, and figure out how you can offer your service to them and get a piece of that stream of income. That is probably the easiest way to do it. So what would it take for me to get, and I'd rather get 5% of something than 100% of nothing. I've been saying that my whole life. And it's so funny because Mary, my wife, she'll say, "How come you sold 75% of that note? Why didn't you keep that for yourself?" I said, "Because I'd rather get 25% for the next 30 years than 100% of nothing. Because when that money comes in, we're just going to take it and pay our bills with it, or we're not going to do anything with it. But now we've got this 25% stream of income coming in for the next 20 or 30 years. And you add that up over the assets that we've accumulated and collected over all these years, um, that adds up to significant amounts of money. And so if you keep in mind that you'd rather have 5% of something than 100% of nothing, and start looking at other people's cash flows and figuring out how you can get a chunk of that cash flow. Is it, are you going to go out and find, and everybody should be doing this, everybody should be going out, what we talked about before, building a network of worthy note buyers and sellers, and scratch out buyers and sellers and type in investors. And so building a network of worthy note investors, that's the key. So I don't know how many people that I've told on this call that they should be going out and networking. Well, what you're looking for is you're building a network of worthy note investors. These are people that are going to be in your life for the rest of your life. These are people that get the game that you're in. They understand what you're doing. They are note investors themselves. They get that we buy this stuff at a discount. They get that once we get a borrower performing, it could be 30 years. You know, this borrower that I just did a refi for, you know, I've gotten, we got to figure from 2011 till now is exactly what, 10 years, 2011, 21. So 10 years, that's 120 payments of $250 a month. Without pulling out a calculator, I'll pull out a calculator. So this is how much I'm discounting her. 55.46. So you got 120 times 250. That's 30 grand. Plus I've gotten a reinstatement to get that loan current of the arrears. That might have been 4,500. So plus 4. And now I'm getting a payoff of 29. We'll just call it 29.8. So she's paid me $63,800, and I paid $5,600 for this note. So that's 10 years of payments, and so I minus 6,000. That's your profit on one note that I bought. I bought the note in 2009. Took me some time to get that thing performing. There's not many people that I can discuss. Oh, I guess you guys, I'm not sharing my screen. So that's $57,800 in profit on a $5,600 or $6,400 note purchase. There's not many people that I can discuss that with and have somebody actually understand what the heck it is I'm talking about. Those are the kind of people that you need to find. They're people on LinkedIn. They are people in the real estate space that you may convert over into the note space. But, you know, it's not a shiny object. You already have a business in mind. You already have note investors in mind. And Julie, I know you're out calling banks and doing all the good stuff that you should be doing and making contacts with banks and stuff. But you should also be looking for new note investors, and don't connect just to get them to join Fast Track or something like that. Connect with them to connect with them as humans, as human beings, as investors. Because those are going to be people that you're going to be working with, long after I'm out of this business, and people that are on this call. I know you're doing that fantastically as well. But for everybody's sake, do build your own group, build your own email list, start marketing out to your email list. I don't care if you take my ideas and market it out to them. Um, but I wouldn't, recommend that. But if you're stuck on ideas, that's fine. Put a group together, put 5 people together, put 5 strangers together, and invite someone from this group on a call. Invite me on the call. I have no problem getting on someone else's call. I did it with Sachin for a couple of 3 meetings to get the wheels greased and up and running, and hopefully he's ready to do another presentation, and we can mail out to those 110 people that are registered um, for his last 5 um, webinar series, and do another webinar series on another deal that he may have come across, or on a concept, or on spreadsheet work or whatever. There's just a million ways to build that network, and there's a million ways to look and start getting cash flow in by looking at, and this came up as a topic years ago on Facebook, back when I first started getting into Facebook. And I had made a post regarding a deal that I was working on, and just enjoying the cash flow on it or something. And someone chimed in and said, is there any way that I can get into this business with no money? And someone posted back very quickly, it's a very cash intensive business. And I don't think that there's any way that you can get into this business with no money. And, my brain started working, and I'm like, you absolutely can get into this business with no money. Go find some note investors that are out there that may need your help, that may need your assistance. Maybe you can start working on their portfolio strictly on a percentage of return. So what does that entail? Well, you better know your stuff. If you're going to go work on someone else's portfolio, you better go back and listen to some of the recordings that are in Fast Track Thinkific platform, and know what it is you need to know. And if there's not enough information there, then come on this call and start asking me some questions, because there is unlimited amounts of capital out there. There's unlimited amounts of capital out there. And what is it that you're actually trying to do? Is you're trying to increase a cash flow, a stream of income coming into you. I promise you, it's going to take people to get that money into your pocket. It's going to take people that you need to talk to, that you need to help, if you don't have any capital yourself. Now, if you have capital and you want, and the Microsika has, and I just sold off some of my partials. So someone came in and said, I'm raising capital at 5%, and I'm looking for a 12% yield, and I want to keep that 7% spread for myself. Okay, so I'll say that again. He has raised capital at 5%, meaning if he borrows $50,000, let me share my screen here. This one. Okay, where is that thing? So $50,000. I'm going to put that into here. For 5 years is 60 at 5%. $50,000 at 5%. He's going to owe his investor $943. Let's make it $945. and he wants a 12 yield on that $50,000. So let's just put 12 in here. So the payment's going to be $1,112. So all I have to do is subtract 1112 minus 945.
Mike, I think this is Bill. If you do like 5%, you're talking about for the whole 5 years or per year?
Yeah,
Like 5%
so,
on 50,000 should be like 2,500 a year, right?
5% interest. The monthly payment would be $943 a month. Oh, well, no, I'm sorry. This would be an interest-only loan, so that's where I'm messing up here.
Because I think that works out to about 2,500 for the year. If you do 5%, like 10% on 50,000 is 5,000.
Yeah, so
half of that
this times 12. Cool. Yeah, 2,500 exactly. So he's looking for a 5% return to give back to his investor, but then he wants to keep at a 12 yield. He'll keep about $300 a month. Is that right? Yeah, Bill. So he'll keep $300 a month on the amount of money that he borrowed. And then at the end of 60 months, he gets all his money back. Actually, this would be a zero here. So anyway, he wants to keep the arbitrage between 5% and 12%. And so he bought these performing loan payments from me and is going to arbitrage those payments over the next 5 years. And so let's say he doesn't have any money of his own. He goes out and finds 5% money, and then he goes and finds an investor like myself who has a cash flow that I sell to him at a 12% yield. And he just put $300 a month into his pocket for essentially just being a rainmaker and putting a deal together. That's a stream of income that, not too many people are talking about. But it definitely requires people, and it requires talking to people, and it requires finding the investor who can give the 12% yield, and it's finding the person who can give a 5% yield. It's making it, they don't teach this stuff in school, and it's unfortunate, but there's so many different ways to make money out there. Once you understand the capital business. Does that help you out, Joel?
Yes, thank you.
Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, growing that network and filling a need makes a lot of sense.
Good. So any other questions out there that I can help you guys out with here tonight?
Hey, Mike, this is Bill Dulambakis again.
Hey, Bill.
I've been actually contacting banks, and I was just wondering if you get a bank that's kind of like, we don't have notes at the moment that we're looking to sell, but we want your info, et cetera. So, it's a good contact.
Yep.
And we may have stuff in the future. How often, in your opinion, should you kind of pester them and follow up? Is that like a monthly thing or?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I hopefully I'm not repeating myself, but I really want to get a good friend of mine on. I'm not gonna mention her name right now, but this woman worked at PNC Bank in the loss mitigation department. Her job was to work the loans, meaning she would call the borrower and man, every time I'm on the phone with a borrower, I think of this woman, and I think of how she would say, um, well, you know, I see here that you have 5,000 available on your credit card. And the woman's like, yeah, well, you know, I just paid that. I just paid that credit card off, and it's I've got a zero balance now. Well, she said, well, I think you better go get that credit card, and I'll wait. And she would just sit there. And the lady on the other end of the phone is like, well, you know, I don't want to use my credit card. No, I'll just sit here and I'll wait. And so the borrower was not rude enough to hang up on her. And eventually she would say, okay, here's the number. And then boom, boom, boom. And she would give her credit card number. And that's what a workout specialist is. And she always told me that I was leaving too much on the table. Just like I'm giving this borrower $5,000 off just because she's a nice lady and because I'm a nice guy. I'm giving her $5,000 off. She would absolutely hit me in the head with a shoe for doing what I did tonight with this borrower. But, you know, we've got two different models. We've got two different styles. And I would love to get her on a call. But she was the loss mitigation specialist at PNC Bank. So she took care of talking to borrowers. She also took care of selling non-performing notes. And so she tells the story of this one guy who I know very well that he wanted in on buying notes from PNC Bank. So he found a house. Now, this is the way she tells the story. I don't know if she's keeping some information back just because it's kind of privileged. But he had found a house that had a non-performing note on it, a PNC non-performing note on it. Let's just say April 1st. And so he faxed in his contact information and wanting to buy this note on 123 Main Street in Pittsburgh. And so he faxed it in on day one, and then on day two, he crossed out April 1st and he put in April 2nd, and he faxed it back in at 8 o'clock in the morning, addressed to this woman. And then April 3rd, he faxed it in, and April 4th, he faxed it in. And finally, by July, she caved in, and one of the deals that she had lined up with another investor, that investor fell through. And she's like, oh my God, I'm not going to make my commission this month or my bonus this month. What am I going to do? Oh, what about this fax? It's in this freaking fax machine every day. So she called this guy up and said, hey, listen, I've got a 3-day deadline. I need to close in 3 days. Can you do it? He said, absolutely. Let me see what you got. He looked it over, all hands on deck. And he managed to pull the trigger on that deal. Now, do you think she was offended because she got a fax in the machine every day from April until July? And now he is in. He's the main buyer. He was the main buyer for PNC for years and years and years because of that one fax. So I would not, I find that emails are a lot less invasive than voicemails. I don't even listen to my voicemails unless it's on my 800 number because it's a borrower. I hate voicemails. I hate leaving them, and I hate picking them up. But emails, you know, are a little less intrusive. And so I would not be embarrassed or worried about offending anyone, Bill, or anybody, about being consistent, because I believe that the consistency does not show desperation as much as it shows dedication. And when you're dedicated and you're committed to actually doing what you say you're going to do with someone, I don't think that you can offend these people. And if you do, they're probably not somebody you're going to be able to work with anyway. So, and I would not ask them, when someone asks me, so when do you want me to get back in touch with you? Call me in 6 months. Because, I would touch base. I believe it really, I believe would really weigh that out upon the type of conversation that you had on the first time, whether or not, you had a good rapport or a bad rapport. That's a really good question.
Yeah, Mike, specifically, one recent lead I had on a bank was a very nice lady, and she said, we don't have anything now, but we probably will in the near future. So that left me, so
Okay.
it wasn't like, unlike PNC, in which case, they even in good times, bad times, they have stuff. Once I heard that, I'm like, oh, okay, this is a good lead. Not somebody who's gonna give me something immediately, but I definitely want to stay in touch, and I don't want to leave it for 6 months. But I don't need to pester them like daily. Like if there's deals happening daily, then I'll send it. I'll do like a fax or something like that. No issue. So in my mind, I was thinking I want to check in at least like, every couple of weeks maybe or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, then maybe every couple of weeks or every month,
Yeah.
and this is what I've been coming up with as well. So in the meantime, while we've got this waiting period, let's say you wait. Let's say you had that call today, and you're like, okay, so I just had that call today. So in, let's say, 2 weeks from now, say, hey, listen, Sally, just while we're sitting here in limbo, let me go ahead and get a hold of your wiring instructions. And let's just get that set up in place. And she'll say, wiring instructions. I said, well, that way, when we're ready to go, that's one less thing that we have to worry about. She might be like, no one's ever asked me for wiring instructions before unless they really intended on sending a wire. So this guy must really intend on sending a wire. Let's go ahead and set that up. So now you're building some credibility here, because here you are getting wiring instructions, and you say, you know what, and here's my wiring instructions just in case there's any need for that as well. And now you're building up a business communication instead of a sales lead. And then 2 weeks later, you might say, you know what, I'd like to send over a purchase and sale agreement. Let's just get our lawyers to be able to look at this thing and see if this is a document that you would approve. And they say, well, we'd like to use our own purchase and sale agreement. Okay, then great. Why don't you send that over and let my lawyers look at that and make sure that we can approve it. And now you're really setting yourself up for, hey, I got a guy who's got a wiring instructions and a pre-approved purchase and sale agreement. What other things can we do? Well, let's get that confidentiality agreement out of the way as well. And let's set up how we plan on doing our file transfers. Do you use Dropbox or a file or share file? Well, let's go ahead and set up that share file account now. I mean, I guarantee you no one else is doing that. I guarantee it. That you are setting yourself up to be that guy. And I intend on doing that. I ended up getting in touch with, while I was down in Florida, with my guy over in Clearwater. And I intend on next week touching base with him and asking him, because I had bought some notes from them already, and I'm just gonna. It's a little bit of a BS move, but I'm gonna say, listen, I just want to make sure that your wiring. Well, actually, the wiring instructions probably did change because the bank name the bank was acquired by another bank. So it's not a BS move. I'm actually going to say, hey, Steve, just so we're ready. You did say that you intend on having something soon. Let me go ahead and get these wiring instructions updated because I have you down with the old bank name. I'm sure you've got a new account number now. And then now the guy's like, oh shit, okay, yeah, he did wire quickly the last time. He wired 5 days before we asked him to. That's right. I do like this guy. And so setting up those preliminary things, I think, goes a long way. I know it would go a long way with me if somebody said, "Hey, listen, I'd love to buy some notes off of you. Um, can I get your wiring instructions?" And I'd be like, "Oh, this dude's serious, man." Um, absolutely. So just keep that in mind, and any other business items that you can think of um, goes a long way because that's legit. That does, you can't do a deal unless you got wiring instructions, and let's get that out of the way now while we're sitting here looking at each other.
Okay. And Mike, just a follow-up question on any emails I do send, whether they're cold emails or like I've been sending follow-up emails mostly, when they give me the info. Um, and generally I'm just kind of talking about, my company, the LLC, and we're active note buyers. I leave it as first and second. And I don't really have too many accomplishments to highlight. I can't say, we did like, 100 million last year or something like that. Throw out some crazy numbers. So I did establish a website, the business presence, the phone numbers, the individual email to a company account. So I didn't know if you had any advice on anything else to add in there, whether it's more so, I think, for the cold emails, to get people interested. If I'm using some sort of services that kind of help you guess, like the email, maybe if I have a name but I don't have an email.
Yeah. Um, let's see. You may want to. Are you connected with you have a note and you have some notes in servicing right now, don't you?
Yeah, I service with FCI.
Okay.
And a little side note with that too. A few weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, I don't know. You guys were talking about the notes and the partials, and it's probably about 3 months at this point. What I did is I have an account with PropStream, so you can print out like a comparative market analysis. And I think it was the point of the call and the comments you had and some of the other guys was you're getting a lot of refis, people refining, so it's like a welcome surprise, full payoff. So one of the loans, I was like, I would love to, just have them pay off. They're paying, a face value 6%. And so I sent a letter. I said, I have a decent relationship with this borrower, and I said, you may not be aware, but you can actually reduce your payment, but close to half even, and save a tremendous amount of money and so forth. So I sent her this, got no response. Right, I sent it by FedEx actually to make sure it got there. And I just got a call yesterday. She got it. She appreciated it. And she was trying to get something going with like her local credit union, but it wasn't working out. I actually have a couple of contacts that are like more mortgage brokers. She has a lot of student loan debt. So I'm trying to help her along. I'm not a loan originator. I'm not giving her advice, but I'm just trying to plug her in with other people.
Yeah.
Might be able to get it done. But I did that based on what you guys were saying. I was like, I'm not desperate. I can just keep receiving the payments. There's nothing wrong with the note. It's just I would love a lump sum payoff. So I kind of, pushed it through. Yeah. If anybody has notes like that it might be worthwhile. I mean, all I did was print out sort of a market analysis that showed what the property was worth now. And a nice little letter and just sent it off. It's no obligation.
Nice.
But you never know what's going to happen. Now, hopefully she gets it done.
Hell yeah.
She had a lot of equity. I mean, she's UPB. We're talking about like 77K. And she was actually looking for some extra money to repair the house too, fix a few things like the bathrooms and stuff, like closer to like 120, but she wasn't even aware that it was appraising at like 137 or something like that.
And that's a
So
first?
that's a first. Yeah, that is a first. There's no second liens on the property. Yeah.
Beautiful.
She originally had like it was about 100K loan, but it has a lot of sentimental value. It's her family's home, and now she has it, and she wasn't that good with her money and that kind of thing.
Yep.
But she got a second chance inside of this transaction to,
Well, good.
you know.
Keep working on finding those loans too, man, because huge potential. Huge.
Yeah, for me, I'm just reaching out. I've had a couple more people tell me they don't even know. Like, I'm kind of going across the spectrum. I'm based in New York. I do have some contacts around here, but I'm looking all across the country, just making calls. I have a virtual assistant helping me a little bit with just setting up some of the data entry, so I'm not
Sweet.
digging as much between
Yep.
calls, trying to leverage some time. And and it also actually, I think it keeps me on track personally. I don't know how everybody else feels on the call, but for me personally, it's almost like, you're in office now, right? Whether you're virtual or not.
Yep.
And there's stuff sort of queued up, and it's like, you got to call these 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, whatever we can find. And it's like, that's the point of the day. The point of the day is to get on the phone with, and, source some inventory, as opposed to, I'm going to mess around on the computer all day, jumping around LinkedIn and wasting the day, which I'm guilty of too.
Well, I mean,
So,
you can do that with this group too. Find a couple of people in this group, or maybe you already have, and I'm not telling you what to do or not do, but
mhm.
this group is specifically set up in my mind for accountability, for that purpose of teamwork, of, hey, you're good on the phone, I'm good with whatever, and sharing the workload and teaming up and getting stuff done. And so that's cool. I wouldn't be too concerned about offending someone by contacting me. Now, if you're looking for something for free from someone, then you're just going to piss someone off. But if you're legitimately there to help them exit their non-performing note business, with my friend that worked at PNC, she get that fax every morning. She go, oh God, that fax again. But it didn't cost her anything. It wasn't time, and every morning, as I guess the mail delivery guy in PNC would get all these faxes and deliver them to the right desk. And she'd get her 3 or 4 faxes, and there's that same one, that guy crossed out. Like, you know what? This guy is serious. This guy really wants to do it. But definitely with the wiring instructions, I think that is the most powerful thing that I've come up with so far to keep the ball rolling, to stay on track with seriousness. And so that's about it.
Okay. One quick question on, when you mentioned, I'm really familiar with Dropbox. You mentioned ShareFile. Is that like just another software?
Yeah,
Similar to
ShareFile
Dropbox?
is a highly secure. I've worked with 3 or 4 banks now that have used ShareFile. You wouldn't need to do anything on your end. It would be, and the reason I mention this, it would be cool if you mentioned Dropbox or ShareFile. And the reason I say ShareFile to you guys is if you use that statement or that sentence or that question, do you use Dropbox or ShareFile? They'll be like, oh, you know about ShareFile because it's a highly encrypted, super secure Citrix product, I think. Citrix, online Citrix. And banks feel very secure about it. It's like 10-layer encrypted compared to Dropbox's whatever. I specifically say to you guys to use ShareFile because that is a banking system. and it would be nothing to do on your end. That would be something that they would share with you. Just like if I was to share with you a Dropbox file, there's really nothing for you to do other than to open up. You could send somebody an invite to a Dropbox thing and automatically give that other person an account. And it's up to the bank to maintain the monthly payment for that Citrix product. So,
Okay, cool.
all right.
Just
good.
real quick, I've had bankers use Box.com as well.
Box, BOX?
Right.
Yes. I have not, but that's a good one, Jewel. Cool. All right, folks, I'm wrapping it up. I am all talked out. Hopefully we've gotten some progress here tonight. I think we covered a lot of ground, and look forward to talking to you next week. Any questions or anything during the week, just go ahead and email me or Julie at Mike or Julie at noconference.com, and dig into that material again, get back into Thinkific and take advantage of all the material that we've put in there, and go back and review these calls and make some progress here. All right. Good night, all.